Hello everyone and welcome back to Phantom Files. So in the last episode I posted a video clip of a haunted doll and it was so intimidating and intense to see this doll through that viewfinder. And I know I told everyone that I would put the history of the doll in the description below, but after speaking with Josh, the story is it's a little bit complicated, a little bit long. So after speaking with him, I learned that there was a doll named Rose. A local family gave Rose to the manor to put on display and interact with because it was haunted, right? The family wanted the doll back. But the same day that the family came and got Rose, a new investigative team was coming in for an overnight at Malvern, and they noticed that there was another doll on location. Her name was Ginger. Now she's the one that I video recorded in the last episode, and it seems that the entity that was attached to Rose decided to stay at the manor and possibly attached itself to Ginger. I will not discuss too much more. I did want to point out in that video clip, you do see that Ginger's foot is broken. It's got a nice crack along it because she's porcelain. That first day, she decided to almost jump off of a counter and land on her feet, which is really odd because Josh has done a few fall tests with her. He's like put air mattresses up around and, you know, kind of knocked her off. She always landed on her head. She's top heavy. So nobody can quite explain how she just kind of slid off and it looked like she jumped and landed on her feet and cracked her foot. So I found that rather interesting because that was one thing I noticed was her foot while she's in that casing now. Because she started appearing in different rooms, creeping out Josh, and he's like, in the box you go. Anyway, so I recorded the voice chat that I had with Josh. I figured who else better to tell the history of the doll than Josh himself. So let's go on and reel into the audio clip.
The doll is really weird. God, it's such a long ass story. So before we had a doll, and the doll we just called Rose. Rose was given to us by this family or whatever that lived in like the Omaha area. And Rose was pretty weird. Rose was pretty jacked up. And it was interesting to me because the family initially, like, we had Rose for, at least 2 years probably. And then we had, they ended up, they wanted the doll back. And I was like, well, that's totally fine. It's your property. You know what I mean? So they came and collected Rose. Now, my grandfather had already built that case for Rose, specifically for Rose. And then, so they came, they collected Rose, they got her out of the house. And it was interesting to me because then it was that night, so they came, collected Rose, it was roughly 2-3 o'clock or so in the afternoon. 4 o'clock, the overnight group checks in. Now, the overnight group checks in and then start their investigation. I don't even remember what time or whatever. It was fairly late in the night. They were live on Facebook, and thank God they were. They were up in Inez's room, where that doll that we now call Ginger was sitting just right over there by that little TV that's in Inez's room. And on the video, you see the doll just kind of jump right off the damn thing, right off that little stand that she was on. So then, after that, we had to, she's a porcelain doll, and she's very top-heavy. And so after I saw that footage, I wanted to do some tests. So obviously, since she is porcelain, she landed on her feet first. Her feet shattered. So we had to kind of put Humpty Dumpty back together again, you know what I mean? So after hours of all of that fun crap, and then days of letting her kind of dry and all of that, I wanted to start conducting some tests with her, and I wanted to do like fall tests. And so what I would do is I would put her on a table roughly the same size, and I would put like air mattresses and shit underneath, so she wouldn't shatter again. Every single time that she would fall off the table, if I bumped into the table, if I jumped up and down, things like that, every time she fell, the head would always take over gravity. She's very top heavy.
So it must have been odd that she landed on her feet.
Okay, it was interesting to me because every single time, every test that I did with her, every fall test, she would, like, her head would take over gravity every single time. And so it's interesting to me watching that video how she could land on her feet. And I mean, the only person that was closer, the closest person I should say, was roughly 3 feet away or whatever. But still, freaking insane that I don't know. I still struggle to even understand it. And so I did numerous tests with her. She was then moving rooms. What was interesting to me is she was mimicking the activity from Rose. So, in my weird line of thinking, I find it curious because we just got rid of Rose that day, that afternoon, right? Just got rid of Rose. Team checks in and gets really weird shit surrounding that doll that then starts to mimic the activity that we used to get from Rose. So is it possible, or is it even feasible, that the spirit, the entity, whatever, that was inhabiting Rose jumped and went to that doll? Like, I don't know, obviously. I'm not sure. It's just an interesting theory to kind of entertain momentarily, but it's weird. And so, yeah, like after all of that crap and she started moving rooms and all of that, and it was really, really starting to trip me out, she went into the case. Yeah, so that's where she's been ever since.
And between you and me, it is absolutely possible for one entity that's attached to a doll to detach and reattach to a different doll. I think it's absolutely possible. So I filmed her for a little bit while I was there. It was only like a minute or two clip because I had a hard time looking at her through the viewfinder. It was like her pupils like zeroed in on the camera and was pissed off. I had a hard time looking at her. She didn't move or anything. I don't know if she can blink. She didn't blink. What was really weird was I filmed her for about a minute, and I walked down the hallway, and I heard, "Mama, what the fuck?" I jumped about 3 feet in the air, easily. I don't know if any of your dolls ever say that.
Yeah, so that's definitely her. It's weird, too, because, yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, she doesn't like cameras at all. At all. In fact, every time that I've put a camera on her, even for a live stream, I've live streamed her for, literally days. And not a single movement, not a single anything, which is interesting. Because then, once the cameras are off, then it's a different ballgame. She'll move around in the case. She'll put herself in very unladylike positions. Any-hooser. But yeah, so it's very interesting to me, like, just her behavior.